Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Carl Jung. There is a silence inside you that terrifies you, not because it is empty, but because it is full of every truth you've tried to outrun, every emotion you've swallowed, every desire you've buried so deeply, even you forgot where you placed it. It is the silence that appears when the world finally stops talking, when the noise of obligations fades, when nobody needs anything from you, when nobody is watching, when nothing distracts you from the thing you fear most, calling yourself. Carl Jung believed that this moment, this frightening, echoing silence is where the real life of a human being begins. Not in the roles we perform, not in the persona we polish for others, not in the predictable routines that keep us safe, but here, in the private territory of the soul, where no one else can enter, and where no lie can survive. This script is about that moment, the one you avoid, the one you fear, the one you fear, the one that changes everything once you finally face it. This is the story of the silence that scares. Carl Jung said, "It is the doorway to your true self." There are two kinds of silence in life. There is the silence that soothes, the quiet of early mornings, of gentle moments, of rest and reflection. And then there is the other silence. The silence that feels like standing alone in a dark room. The one that tightens your chest. The one you try to drown in music. In work, in talking, in scrolling, in anything that keeps your mind from drifting inward. This silence feels dangerous, as if something inside is waiting for you, as if something might break open if you stay there too long. People call it boredom, loneliness, numbness, restlessness. Jung called it the voice of the self trying to be heard, not the ego, the small self. The performing self, the mask you show the world, but the deep self, the ancient part of you that knows what you need, what you fear, what you long for, what you were born to become. Most people never meet this part of themselves. They feel the pull toward it. Yes, a discomfort. AHOLLOWNESS. A strange ache. They can't quite act. But they run from it. They run fast. Because meeting your true self means confronting everything in you that's been neglected, repressed, denied, and forgotten. It means seeing where you've betrayed yourself. It means admitting how much of your life has been lived for approval, not authenticity. That is why the silence scares you, not because it is empty, but because it contains the truth. And Jung believed that deep down, every human being knows this. Carl Jung wrote that every human being creates a persona, kind of psychological mask, that allows us to survive in a world filled with expectations, rules, and judgments. It is the version of ourselves we craft so we can be accepted, understood, welcomed. The persona is not the enemy. It is a tool, a bridge, a necessary social skin that lets us function in families, workplaces, friendships, communities, without some kind of mask. It would be impossible to move through the world without constant conflict. But Jung warned that the persona becomes dangerous when we begin to confuse it with our true identity. When the mask stops being something we wear and becomes something we are, and that shift happens quietly. You don't wake up one morning thinking, "Today I will abandon myself." No, it happens in small moments, subtle compromises, tiny silences you barely notice. You become the responsible one. Because people praised you when you held everything together. You become the strong one because showing pain once caused someone to withdraw or criticize you. Become the successful one because your worth was measured by achievements, not authenticity. You become the quiet one. Because speaking up once made someone uncomfortable, you become the easygoing one. Because conflict felt too dangerous, you become the good one. Because love felt conditional, and you wear these roles for so long, so convincingly, so consistently, that eventually they begin to feel like your skin. But they are not your skin. They are costumes crafted for survival. Not for truth. Jung believed that the cost of maintaining the persona is always paid in fragments of the soul, bit by bit. Year by year, you start bending yourself into shapes that preserve approval but betray your inner self. You shrink your wants so others won't be inconvenienced. You hide your anger because you fear conflict or rejection. You silence your intuition because it contradicts what others expect of you. You swallow your disappointments. So you don't look dramatic or ungrateful, you minimize your dreams so they don't look unrealistic. You pretend you don't need what you deeply, desperately need. You say I'm fine because it's easier than saying I'm lost. This is how people slowly lose themselves, not through one grand betrayal, but through thousands of tiny, quiet ones, and eventually, without realizing it, you forget who you were before you learned to perform. Jung once described the persona as clothing. You never remove a permanent costume. You forget you're wearing. You forget you are naked underneath. You forget there is a real, pulsing, breathing, longing human being beneath the layers. Someone with real needs, real fears, real desires, real dreams. Someone who is suffocating under the weight of all the masks. Because the persona, no matter how polished or praised or admired, is still just a mask. And masks, over time, become heavy then. One day often, without warning, something shifts. Maybe you wake up and feel a strange heaviness you can't explain. Maybe a relationship ends and suddenly your role collapses with it. Maybe you achieve everything you were told would make you happy, and you still feel empty. Maybe grief shatters your routines. Maybe burnout drags you into stillness. Maybe a quiet voice inside you whispers, "This can't be all there is." The persona cracks, and when it does, you feel exposed, confused, frightened, but also strangely relieved, because the life you've built no longer feels like yours, because the person you've been pretending to be has grown too tight. Like clothing you've outgrown but kept wearing out of habit. And suddenly, the silence inside you, the silence you've been avoiding, the silence you've been afraid of becomes unbearable. Not because it is empty, but because it is full of truths you've pushed away for years. This moment, this quiet collapse of the mask is not failure. It is the beginning of transformation, the beginning of meeting the self you abandoned, the beginning of remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It is the moment that persona no longer fits into your soul, begins to ask for something more. Carl Jung's most revolutionary and misunderstood idea is the shadow, the hidden, unspoken, unaccepted dimension of you that formed the moment you realized certain parts of yourself were not allowed. The shadow is not your darkness. It is the part of you that had to go dark so you could survive the world around you. Every time you were told, "Don't be so emotional," every time your anger was punished, every time your enthusiasm was mocked, every time your curiosity was shut down, every time your sensitivity was dismissed, every time your ambition made someone uncomfortable, every time your boundaries were ignored, every time your needs were labeled too much, every time you were asked to be quiet, polite, acceptable, a piece of you slipped into the shadow. You didn't choose to hide these parts. You hid them because not hiding them felt dangerous. Children don't suppress emotions because they are wrong. They suppress them because they threaten connection, because love, real or conditional, always outweighs authenticity in the early years, and so the shadow forms not as a punishment, but as a survival strategy. Everything you were taught to hide, your anger, hunger, passion, sexuality, creativity, ambition, grief, and longing, became the forgotten inhabitants of your inner darkness. Not because they were shameful, not because they were bad, but because they made someone else uncomfortable. You dimmed your light so others could feel safer in their darkness. The shadow does not vanish. It's just because you silence it. It gathers power. It sinks deeper. It becomes the quiet reservoir of everything unlived. It's unspoken, unexpressed. Jung believed The shadow waits for you silently, patiently, with the devotion of a loyal animal you abandoned. It waits for the moment your life becomes too small. It waits for the moment you can no longer pretend. It waits for the moment the pain of avoiding yourself becomes greater than the fear of meeting yourself. We fear silence not because it is empty, but because silence is where the shadow lives. In stillness, it whispers, it sends up fragments, memories you never processed, truths you never said out loud, emotions you buried so deeply you forgot their names. The shadow rises in the dark because the dark is the only place cannot distract yourself from yourself. Yet Jung insisted, the shadow is not your enemy, it is your salvation. Inside the shadow lies everything you lost in the process of becoming acceptable. It holds your creativity, the imagination you once had before you were told to be realistic. It holds your intuition, the knowing you silenced to please others. It holds your boundaries, it's the ones you never learned to set because you feared losing love. It holds your anger, the holy fire. It's meant to protect you. It holds your confidence. A voice that once said, I can, before the world told you you shouldn't. It holds your joy, the childlike spark that never truly died. It holds your purpose. It's the impulses that were early signs of your destiny. It holds your wholeness, the parts of you that feel the most like you. The shadow is not darkness. It is light that you were never allowed to claim openly. When the shadow rises, it is not trying to destroy your life. It is trying to return you to it. It wants you to feel again, to wake up to, remember, to reclaim, to reconnect with the parts of you that were exiled in your attempt to be loved, praised, accepted, or safe. The shadow is the bridge between the life you have and the life you were meant to live. It is the door to authenticity, its creativity, power, its meaning. And nothing, absolutely nothing awakens your true self more profoundly than meeting the shadow that has been waiting for you in the dark. Because when you finally turn toward it, you do not find a monster. You find your brilliance, your voice, your courage, your truth. You find the person you were born to be. There comes a moment in every human life, quiet, heavy and impossible to ignore, when the old self simply cannot continue. It doesn't happen like a dramatic explosion. It doesn't arrive with alarms or sudden chaos. Instead, it unfolds slowly, quietly, like sand slipping through your fingers. The life that once made sense becomes a life that feels foreign. The routines that once felt grounding now feel suffocating. The dreams you once chased no longer spark anything in you except exhaustion. It begins with a subtle erosion of meaning. You catch yourself feeling empty during moments when you're supposed to feel proud. You find it harder to feel joy in what used to excite you. You start questioning things you never questioned before. Why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? Is this still my life? Or just a script I've memorized? The loss is quiet but relentless. Your energy drains faster. Your motivation frays. Your passion feels like a memory. You wake up tired. Not because you lack sleep, but because you lack soul. This is not laziness. This is not weakness. This is not falling behind. This is the moment Jung called the individuation crisis, the point where the ego, your old identity, can no longer contain the size of your soul. Most people don't recognize this moment for what it is. Instead, they blame themselves. I shouldn't feel this way. I should be grateful. I should be stronger. I should be able to handle this. The ego loves should. Ego clings to the familiar. The ego fears change because change means losing control, and so the ego panics. It tries to drag you backward. It tries to force you into old identities. The reliable one, the strong one, the successful one, the one who never complains, the one who always figures it out. It tries to convince you that if you just push harder, pretend longer, try better, you can go back to who you used to be. But the truth is painful, sacred, and undeniable. You cannot go back, because the person you were is too small for the person you are becoming. This collapse, the loss of passion, the numbness, the confusion, the disorientation, is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is right. It is your inner world finally refusing to live a life that does not match your deeper truth. Jung said, the soul has one job, to make you whole. And when your outer life no longer aligns with your inner truth, soul steps in. Not gently, not politely, but necessarily. The soul withdraws its energy from anything that is false, anything that is performative, anything that is built on pleasing others at the cost of betraying yourself. And without the soul's energy, the old self collapses. This collapse feels terrifying. It feels like losing control. It feels like losing your identity. It feels like walking away from everything familiar. But that is because the collapse is not the end. It is a clearing. A clearing where the old story dissolves so the real story can finally emerge. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. You are not failing. You are shedding. You are not losing yourself. You are meeting yourself for the first time, without filters, without roles, without masks. The collapse is the doorway, the threshold, the initiation. It is the moment your soul whispers, "Enough. This is not your life. Not anymore." It is your beginning. The beginning of authenticity, the beginning of depth, the beginning of truth, the beginning of a self. It is no longer shaped by fear, by expectations, or by survival. The old self collapses so the real self can rise. And though it feels like falling apart, you are finally falling into yourself. There is a moment, often so quiet you can miss it, when a person realizes they have wandered far from themselves. It doesn't announce itself dramatically. It doesn't break the door down. Instead, it feels like a faint ache. A soft tug somewhere deep in the chest, something subtle, something ancient, something that feels like memory. Jung believed that each person comes into the world with an inner blueprint, a psychological map of the life they are meant to live. Not a rigid destiny or some predetermined fate, but a direction like an inner compass pointing toward the most authentic version of who you could become. He said, "The soul knows what it came here to experience long before the mind learns how to survive, and long before you learn to bend, before the world taught you to trade passion for predictability, before responsibility overshadowed curiosity, before the wounds became armor, before the praise became fuel, before the fear became a guide somewhere." In the early chapters of your life, this blueprint was alive in you. You felt it as a natural pulse, the things you were drawn to, the talents that came effortlessly, the subjects you were obsessed with, the dreams that made your chest warm. You didn't think twice back then. You didn't doubt whether you were allowed to want those things. You didn't apologize for your gifts, but then life happened. You learned which parts of you were praised and which parts were punished, which dreams were realistic and which were childish, which emotions were acceptable and which made people uncomfortable, which desires were too much and which were just enough. Bit by bit, you learned to silence the compass inside, not because you failed, but because you were trained to survive. You learned to choose safety over growth, because growth meant risk. Logic over intuition, because intuition can't be explained. Approval over expression, because expression could cost you connection. Conformity over individuality, because individuality made you stand out. Predictability over passion, because passion felt unstable. Stability over truth, because truth disrupts the peace. Performance over purpose, because purpose didn't always impress people. Pleasantness over honesty, because honesty was inconvenient. Obedience over authenticity, because authenticity threatens the comfortable order. And with each choice, the inner blueprint dimmed and not erased, just buried, covered by responsibilities, expectations, fears, and the need to be who others needed you to be. But here's the thing Jung understood better than anyone. The soul never forgets. The blueprint remains inside you, untouched, waiting. And when you drift too far from it, the soul begins to protest. Not loudly, not cruelly, but insistently. It sends signals, those strange emotional messages you never know how to explain. A sudden emptiness, A longing you can't name. A. Boredom that no distraction can fix. A. Restlessness that makes you question everything. A. Silence that scares you with its honesty. These are not punishments. They are coordinates. The soul isn't scolding you. It's guiding you. It is saying, this isn't it. Not for you. Not anymore. The silence you fear is actually an orientation, a compass, recalibrating, trying to point you back to the path you abandoned. It is the deepest part of you whispering, turn inward. You are not on the wrong path. You're just not on your path. It's somewhere within you. Beneath the years of roles and responsibilities, the blueprint waits, not faded, not forgotten, just waiting for the moment. You are finally brave enough to follow it again. There comes a moment in life when the quiet inside you grows louder than the noise outside. You've spent years running, performing, pleasing, and surviving. But suddenly the walls of your carefully constructed life feel too tight. The smiles you painted on your face, the routines you've clung to, the roles you've perfected, they no longer fit. That is the moment your true self begins to stir, demanding attention. Meeting this self is not gentle. It does not arrive with fanfare or reassurance. It arrives like a storm, a force that cannot be ignored, a truth that refuses to wait. Courage is the first requirement. Not the courage to face the world, which you have practiced countless times, but the courage to face the corners of yourself you have been numbing. The fear that you will find disappointment, shame, or weakness there is real, yet it is not as dangerous as ignoring it. The truths you have been avoiding, the sadness you have been suppressing, the desires you have been telling yourself are forbidden. They are all waiting. Feeling them, naming them, sitting with them is the first step toward reclaiming your life. Strength comes next. Strength to admit what you have been denying. The subtle betrayals you've committed against yourself in the name of comfort, acceptance, or survival. Strength to say, I have been living for others too long. I have been small in places where I should have been vast. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, but it is seismic. Every denial you admit cracks the surface of the life you thought was solid. And in those cracks, light begins to seep in. Humility is required too. You must challenge the stories you have told yourself, stories about who you are, what you deserve, what you are capable of. The narrative that has sustained your persona may now betray you, for it was built on compromise and survival, not truth. To question it is to risk uncertainty, embarrassment, and fear, but without that questioning, you remain half alive, a shadow moving through someone else's script. Patience is essential, because decades of conditioning cannot be unraveled in a single moment. Every habit, every reflex, every deeply ingrained belief will resist. The mind will argue. The heart will resist. The world will whisper that you are foolish. But the soul is patient. It waits for you to return, knowing that transformation is not measured in days or months, but in commitment and quiet persistence. Compassion is your ally. You cannot reclaim what you abandoned if you hate yourself for abandoning it. The wounded, fearful, lost parts of your psyche must be met with kindness. They have been carrying your pain long before you were aware. They deserve recognition, respect, and care. Through compassion, the shadow you once feared becomes a guide, a reservoir of energy, creativity, and wisdom. Honesty is required at every step. You must look at where you have betrayed your own needs, where you have allowed fear, obligation, or shame to make your choices. The truth is uncomfortable, sometimes unbearable, but it is the doorway. Faith is the final companion. Faith to step into a life you cannot yet fully see. Faith to trust that the emptiness is a signal, not a punishment, and that the unknown holds more vitality than the familiar illusions you cling to. Most people never take this journey. They settle for a half-life, safe, predictable, and hollow. Jung wrote that a child carries the unlived life of the parent, but an adult carries their own unlived life, and that burden is heavier because it is chosen. The moment you turn inward, your world shifts not because the external world changes, but because you do. You begin to remove everything that is not you. The masks, the facades, the routines that no longer serve your soul. The silence becomes your teacher. Your intuition becomes your guide. Your shadow becomes your ally. Your discomfort becomes your compass. Your tenderness becomes your strength. Your truth becomes your home. It is not easy. It is not safe. But it is the only way to live fully. And for the first time, the life you inhabit is truly yours. There comes a moment quiet, subtle, almost imperceptible, when the inner world begins to awaken. It does not arrive with fanfare or dramatic clarity. It rises like the first light of dawn, soft and patient, illuminating the corners of yourself you had long ignored. In this awakening, you sense a stirring deep within, a part of you that has been waiting, silent but persistent for decades. Suddenly, the quiet that once frightened you no longer feels threatening. Instead, it becomes a gentle companion, safe space where you begin to recognize that you are not lost. You are being found. The true self does not announce itself with grand gestures or proclamations. It emerges gradually, piece by piece, like a hidden melody finally audible after years of noise and distraction. You start to remember dreams you had long abandoned, visions of a life that felt vibrant and possible. These are not idle fantasies. They are echoes of your inner blueprint, reminders of who you were always meant to be. Emotions that once made you uncomfortable, that you tried to bury or ignore, begin to surface without shame. Sadness, longing, joy, excitement, they all find their place. And you no longer have to apologize for feeling them. With this awakening comes clarity. You begin to speak truths you never dared voice, truths that had been silenced by fear, expectation, or obligation. You realize that the opinions you withheld, the words you swallowed, and the desires you postponed were all attempts to survive in a world that demanded compromise. Now, you reclaim your voice. You set boundaries that feel natural rather than confrontational. You make choices based on what nourishes your spirit rather than what merely pleases others. Your actions start to align with your inner values, and for the first time, your external life begins to echo your inner reality. Trust grows. You begin to listen to your inner voice, the quiet, unshakable compass that knows what is right for you. Decisions that once felt paralyzing now carry a subtle certainty. You start to move toward what feels alive rather than what is safe or expected. You reconnect with the parts of yourself you had exiled, whether it was your creativity, your curiosity, your playfulness, or your courage. Each reclamation feels like a piece of your soul returning home, and with each return you feel more whole, more real, more awake. This is not an instant transformation. It is not a single revelation or a sudden epiphany. It is a gradual process of returning, a lifelong journey of peeling away the layers of masks, expectations, and fear to reveal the self that has always existed beneath. It is the slow unfolding of authenticity, the patient and persistent work of integrating all the parts of yourself you had hidden or denied. And as this integration deepens, you begin to love the person you are becoming, not the persona you constructed to survive. Not the image others expect, but the true, unfiltered, unashamed self. Carl Jung wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who the world told you to be, not who trauma forced you to be, not who societal expectations shaped you to be, but who your soul always knew you were. This awakening is a sacred invitation to step into the fullness of your existence, to honor your inner truth, and to live a life that is not borrowed from others but claimed by your own heart. It is a return to home, not a physical home, but the home within yourself, the sanctuary where your spirit has waited patiently for your recognition, your courage, and your love. When you finally meet your true self, the outer world begins to shift, often in ways that others cannot immediately comprehend. You may notice subtle changes at first, a quiet confidence in how you speak, a newfound clarity in your decisions, a refusal to bend to the expectations that once shaped every move you made. The life you live externally starts to reflect the internal reality you have reclaimed. You stop pretending. You stop bending to fit molds that never truly suited you. You stop over-explaining yourself to justify your existence or your choices. The incessant need for approval begins to fade because you have discovered that your value does not require external validation. You stop settling. The relationships, jobs, and routines that once felt good enough no longer satisfy the soul's craving for authenticity. You stop shrinking, masking your desires, hiding your ambitions, silencing your voice, and, instead, you claim the space you were always meant to occupy. You stop abandoning yourself. The compromises that once seemed necessary now feel like chains. And you start to dismantle them, piece by piece, with the courage to honor your inner truth. This process is not reckless. It is deliberate, gentle, and fiercely honest. You start choosing what nourishes you rather than what is convenient or expected. Your intuition becomes a trusted guide, leading you toward choices that align with your deeper self. You honor your boundaries, no longer allowing others to dictate your energy, time, or identity. Work becomes more than a paycheck. It becomes a canvas for purpose and creativity. Relationships become more than habitual connections. They become spaces of mutual respect, honesty, and emotional resonance. You begin exploring what feels alive, seeking experiences that ignite curiosity and passion rather than mere obligation. And you grieve the old life with compassion, not regret, understanding that every choice you made in the past was part of the journey that led you here. People may notice these shifts and comment that you've changed. Some may resist it, feeling unsettled by your authenticity. Others may celebrate it, recognizing a light they never knew existed in you. But the truth is, this is not change in the superficial sense. You haven't become someone new. You have returned. You have returned to yourself, to the person who existed before fear, expectations, and compromise muffled your voice. And in returning, you step into a life that finally feels whole. As you inhabit this truth, life deepens. Your relationships become more honest, infused with clarity and mutual understanding. Work feels meaningful, a reflection of your passions and values, rather than a societal expectation. Your choices become aligned with your inner compass, and indecision diminishes as your clarity grows. Your voice gains strength and authenticity. You speak with authority because you speak from experience and truth. Your presence becomes palpably. Others can sense when you are fully yourself. And your path, once shrouded in confusion and distraction, comes visible, illuminated by the awareness that comes from meeting your true self. This is individuation, the core of Jungian psychology, the journey of integrating all aspects of the self and becoming whole. It is psychological adulthood, the point at which you no longer allow external pressures to define you, but instead live in alignment with your inner reality. It is spiritual awakening, the recognition that the life you were searching for externally has always been waiting within you. This is what Jung dedicated his life to teaching, that the ultimate purpose of life is not success, approval, or achievement, but the awakening and expression of the authentic self. When you emerge on the other side, life is no longer about surviving, performing, or pleasing. It is about living fully, deeply, and authentically guided by the compass of the soul that has always known the way. Meeting your true self is not a single moment, one-time revelation, or a tidy conclusion. It is not like flipping a switch or reaching the top of a mountain. It is a lifelong journey, a spiral that deepens, widens, and unfolds with each season of your life. The first steps are the hardest, but they are only the beginning. Each encounter with yourself, your fears, your shadows, your hidden truths prepares you for the next. Life becomes a series of returns, each one closer to who you truly are. Even after the first awakening, you will face more shadows. New layers of your psyche will emerge, revealing fears, regrets, desires you thought you had dealt with, where you may discover aspects of yourself that you never noticed before. The shadow is persistent, and rightly so. It holds the very essence of the self that has been silenced or abandoned, the qualities that make you whole. Each time it rises, it is not to punish you, but to guide you toward wholeness. To remind you that there is more depth to your existence than you have yet explored. you will outgrow more personas. The masks you wear will continue to loosen, revealing the authentic self beneath. Social roles, professional expectations, and personal habits that once felt comfortable may suddenly feel suffocating. You will shed layers that no longer serve your growth, layers that once offered safety, but now hinder your true expression. With each shedding, there will be grief. There will be doubt. There will be a temptation to retreat. But every time you resist retreating, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You honor your inner life, and your presence in the world becomes more genuine. Collapses of the old will continue to arrive, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. Old routines, relationships, or careers that once defined you may crumble, leaving you feeling lost or destabilized. This is not failure. This is life realigning itself with the truth of who you are. The silences that accompany these collapses are terrifying at first. They feel like emptiness, like falling, like being untethered from reality. But with time, they transform. The silence becomes a place of reflection, a space for listening, a canvas on which your soul paints its guidance. As you journey, you will shed what no longer aligns with your deeper self. Each letting go is a gift, even when it feels like a loss. You will uncover new truths about who you are, what you value, and what you were born to create. Each revelation strengthens your capacity to live authentically. Each challenge prepares you to navigate the next layer of life with grace, courage, and awareness. You evolve again and again, not by force, but through the natural unfolding of inner work. With every spiral upward, you become more equipped, more grounded, more aware, more authentic, more yourself. The fears that once paralyzed you diminish. The confusion that once clouded your choices clears. The discomfort that once seemed unbearable becomes a guidepost, pointing you toward growth and integration. And the silence that once frightened you transforms into something sacred. It becomes a sanctuary, a place you return to for wisdom, healing, and clarity. Eventually, the silence is no longer empty. It is home. It is where your soul speaks clearly, where your intuition is trusted, where your presence is whole and undivided. It is a reminder that the journey of meeting yourself is eternal, but that with each turn of the spiral, life becomes richer, deeper, and more alive. The ongoing journey is not a burden, it is the gift of discovering and rediscovering the self that has always been waiting patiently for you to come home. The silence that scares you is not empty, it is not hollow, it is not dangerous. It is the doorway to the life you were meant to live. It is the voice of your soul asking you to return. It is the shadow asking to be integrated. It is the blueprint asking to be followed. It is the forgotten self asking to be. Remember, Jung said that no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. This is the essence of inner work. To descend into yourself, to meet the parts you abandoned, to reclaim the light you hid. To emerge whole, the silence is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It is calling you inward. It is calling you home. It is calling you back to the truth of who you are. And if you dare to listen, if you dare to enter the silence, you will awaken.